And we are recording. Oh, look. Spine straight, deep breath. Yeah, let's do that actually real quick, because are you familiar with coherence?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe like syncing brain and heart, EKG,
So
EMG. I mean, I don't like, I get it, but I don't like, I couldn't like.
this is a good conversation, because when you're talking about the formula for love, one of the things that I believe is part of that formula is heart coherence. So I studied with the founders and creators of HeartMath, who are the foremost authority when it comes to coherence, because they've been studying it for 30 years and have all these research and information about it. And so coherence is creating that, or activating the intelligence of the heart, and creates a field for that individual, which is the vibration where manifestation can be accelerated. And so when we talk about this formula for love, this is one of the things that would be awesome, I think, for us to touch upon. And I think it's going to piggyback on what you're about to share when it comes to that formula you speak of. I'm just having this sense of it.
Cool.
So real quick, let's just do that for the next 15, 20 seconds. Take a couple deep breaths and tune into the heart. Beautiful. Let's rock this, Theora. Okay,
Yeah.
so hello everyone out there. I am Jay Brown. I have Theora Minch with me. Did I say that right? Because we
Yeah.
just
Theora Mensch. It's weird.
Theora Minch. No, it's beautiful. I like it. And I'm excited for this conversation today, because for me, I like to learn from people that actually have gotten results in the world. And when it comes to dating and relationships, I know for a fact Theora has gotten the results for people that are looking to level up their dating and relationship experience. And so, my intention for this conversation is for people out there to access her wisdom and to get an experience of what she brings to the world, because she's been doing the work. And we're going to give you an opportunity to experience her as I experienced her on a Facebook Live one day. She shared some really amazing tips and tricks with when it comes to dating relationships, and this is what is really important to us. We want to give you those tips and those tricks so that you can have a better dating experience, because a lot of people are starting out in the world right now. And so here's your opportunity to tap into one of the sources of a lot of wisdom. And Theora, thank you for joining us today. So I want to start by asking you about your background. Why are you qualified to even guide someone in this world of dating and relationships?
Oh, I'm a rabbit hole diver. Um,
Mm.
yeah. Someone asked me my origin story, like, and so I started trying to map out how it began. And I don't know if you're the same way with your expertise, but I remembered, the way we often do with a new question, is the first relationship book I ever read. I think I was 16 or 17. And just started out. My mom passed away when I was young. And then my dad remarried a really wonderful woman. But I think the instability of that really, I grew up without, I also grew up in a bit of a commune. So I grew up without this assumed model of what relationship looked like. And I didn't watch a ton of TV growing up either. So I think in some ways I kind of came out of the gate with this fresh, clean slate around what relationship. There was no like relationship is supposed to, burr, burr, burr.
Mhm.
And then in high school, I remember looking around and really seeing my friends' parents who were either all divorced, um, and like not like uncoupled consciously, or were in marriages where like you could tell they were not happy. And I remember wondering, either there's a better way to do this, or why are we doing it? It doesn't make sense to me that we would like place ourselves in these dynamics of misery.
Hmm.
um yeah, so I remember reading that first book when I was 17, and then several years ago, um was at a Tony Robbins event, and he said, it was 5 or 6 years ago, and he said, everybody wants love, almost everybody settles for connection. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh,
Wow.
Because that's exactly the relationship I was currently in, was like one that was like good enough. Like I can make this work. And it just like spoke to me at a molecular level. And then I went like the deep dive and did sacred sexuality and David Data and Alison Armstrong. She specializes very much in how like biology and instinct inform socialization and bonding. And then also with a bit of a background in NLP and how our neurology really like our conditioning makes a lot of our decisions, started to wed the three in particular, for how can we really be intelligent about this love and relationship thing. I don't know, have you ever heard of love languages?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Like everybody knows about those now, but most of us learned about them when we were in our 20s. But it's not that they weren't at play when we were children. It was just there was a language that we didn't cognizantly know existed. So I kind of started hunting down all of these and studying in depth with some of the really like leading experts in the country and world, and saw that most of them were oriented towards partnership, not towards finding a partner. So there's a lot out there for how to be in sacred partnership, but very little about what it looks like to bring that awareness and a multidimensional presence and awareness. I already said awareness to dating and like sourcing the partner, right? And if you don't have a partner and you're doing all of this amazing work around partnership, it can really magnify and amplify that missingness or that absence, that yearning that we have to be deeply connected. So that's really how I got into the specific specialty of assisting people in what does it look like to show up really empowered and confident and authentic to dating, such that you're really like shifting the paradigm that you're experiencing, having fun, experiencing romance, and really starting highly qualified partnerships off before day one. Yeah.
So you have an experience through your own childhood with your mother passing away, your father remarrying, seeing the dysfunction within your own household, seeing the dysfunction within other households. And then this brought up the thought, well, why the hell is this happening kind of thing, right? And then this inspires you to go on an adventure to discover the answer to this question, right? And in this discovery, you're seeing that there's all these different techniques or knowledge and whatnot that exist in the world, but the application of it is where you found the disconnection.
Yeah.
And so then you went on your own journey to create a formula that enables an individual to actually apply what's already out there in the world in a way that gets results. Is that kind of encompassing what?
Yeah. And it started out wholly selfish, right? Because I think I've been a very growth oriented, very curious person all my life, and have oftentimes found myself in relationships where I didn't feel met in that sort of like rapid velocity into the future. And so it started out just me wanting to learn for me so that I could find my person. But as I was learning, I was do you know Mary Morrissey? Her brand is Dream Builder. She's phenomenal. Highly recommend to anybody who's watching. But she talks about it as drum beating, where you like get it and you're like, hey, everybody, I learned this new thing. Like, let me convince you why it's so amazing. I'm sure anybody here has been in personal development, like, you know, like goes and like buys their book for all their family, and their family is like, oh my God. Right. Yeah. I was a total drum beater. I still am at times. But what I watched was I started watching the relationships of the people around me transform as I was learning it. And I inherited this from my dad very much. When I learned something, then I sort of anchored in through like trying to teach it or like explain it to other people. So I started seeing like my best friends' relationships starting to change. And then I started to see family members' relationships starting to change. I started to see the way that my relationship started to change. And that's where that traction really began. It was like a couple years later, and I thought maybe I could really like endeavor to do this in a big way. And that's when I started down the professional path of figuring out how to make that work.
So you studied you started to create these formulas. taking what you've learned and then sharing it with the people around you, you started to see that they're getting results. And then this inspired you to think, okay, well, maybe this can be a profession of mine. And the rest, as they say, is history, right?
Yeah.
So my follow-up question to that, or not follow-up question, but the thought came to me then, what is it about you, Theora, that enables you to actually get people results in this space of dating and relationships?
Oh, that's a great question. And the first two things that came up is one is you really can't shock me when it comes to a relationship. I think through this work and maybe it's like co-evolved, but is I definitely personally feel an extreme forgiveness for the human condition. I've had people share with me that they used to be like sex workers, or that they're currently having an affair, right? Like that they're dealing with a drug addiction. As we like, as like, I just do an intake call with them. And I think one of the reasons why I can really usher people through this process is just like extreme forgiveness of understanding, like people are just doing the
Mm,
best they can, and really understanding that like at any given point, it's just a matter of humans trying to get their needs met. And if they don't know how to do it constructively, they'll do it destructively. Oftentimes
mm,
they'll do it
mhm,
unconsciously, which usually manifests in a destructive manner.
mm,
So I think that that can create like a really beautiful foundation and basis of trust, where they don't feel judged for being crazy, or being some of the words that I hear is like, you know, crazy, or like indulging in drugs, or those sorts of things. Or I guess I haven't had anybody with like a current drug problem, but I've had people who are in recovery, and that like really really messes with a person's sense of worthiness. So I think coming out of the gate really believing in people's worthiness definitely helps. And then the second thing that I think what makes mine particularly efficient is, and the reason I picked the area that I serve, which is I worked with couples. I worked with people ending partnership. I worked with people in their 60s, and I worked with people in their 20s. Like I've kind of worked with a broad spectrum, and really
mhm,
zeroed in on wanting to meet the person who is currently single, not wanting to be, because they really want to do this relationship well. And they're really ready to create that partnership. Because for me, the magic of setting up a foundation that is interwoven with that growth and depth and high caliber conversation that like has kind of that endless font of excitement, because you're constantly in that discovery with another person in a fun, safe, expansive way. The way that I got there was, again, I was looking around and seeing all this stuff for partnership, and then I started to look for dating teachers. You and I both know if there's an area that you want to master, go find somebody who's an expert at it, and then
mm,
you can you can do something in 3 months that might take you 5 years or 10 or never.
mhm,
um, right? Like really like Bluetoothing and accessing a portal of expansion, you know, kind of like hacking
mhm,
awareness.
mhm.
Um,
It's
but
like
what
Neo learning,
kung fu,
karate in
I
yeah,
know
kind
kung
of movie.
fu. I just watched The Matrix. Oh my God, I love The Matrix. Okay. Um, the dating experts I found, there were a couple of patterns that I saw that I um, didn't love. One was pickup artistry. So there are people now dating like higher quality practical approaches, because we do need a way to participate in the process, to just like get some purchase versus being like, I'm gonna keep like shooting in the dark and like hope an amazing cocktail of a human shows up, right? Which is just like kind of crazy. So we do need like practical approaches and strategies for things to practice, right? um, but pickup artistry really is this manipulation of social norms, or psychological tendencies that can only get people so far, and it's very manipulative. Um, so I see descendants of pickup artistry, or I see sometimes, and this is not to say that men can't teach women, but some of the men I've seen who teach women, they haven't lived the experience of like recovering from sexual assault, or living in a world where they've been subject to unwanted sexual attention their entire lives. And so sometimes they can kind of have like a little bit of a blind spot where they miss a component of the experience of being sexualized female. And they can be like, just do this strategy. And when it's all strategy, it can really feel, again, like mechanical and manipulative.
Transactional.
Yeah. And for people who are really ascending into these higher states of awareness and higher frequencies, if it can't come from their own authentic awareness, then it feels fake and it doesn't feel good. And if it doesn't feel good, then you're going to be putting out this weird energy, and the people that are, it's like, right. So, I just saw a couple of deficiencies in that methodology. And then the other is one that's very, very divine feminine focused, but it's very, hold on. Excuse me. It's divine feminine. That's a very like lighter, demure, soft, which is one flavor of divine feminine. But for me, I have a lot of flavors. I have like a dark feminine, and I have like a sassy feminine, like I have like a Kali, and so this performance of a certain kind of femininity, this one note, right? When it really could be a symphony. I felt in some ways was like taking me out of one box, being told I was being too masculine, and like now I should be this kind of feminine. That felt additionally limiting. And so I think I really was like, well, what's the multidimensional comprehensive way to do this? And one is like understanding masculine, feminine energetics and like the really what's spiritually going on. Another is quantum physics and alignment and becoming a vibrational match. Another is like, what is like the business strategy, the practical strategy? Like when it comes to consistency, what does that mean showing up for your epic love story? And then the last is really understanding the neurology and how that impacts, again, the way we socialize, the way we bond, and then our conditioning, which oftentimes is making our decisions for us. Like a question I would have for you is like, when you see someone you're attracted to, maybe this is not as true for people who are socialized male, but for women, right? Like if we see someone we're attracted to, we'll be like, I hope he doesn't notice me looking at him, which is like the craziest, most counterintuitive thing, right? Like that's like, and a guy's gonna be like, oh, okay, she doesn't want me to talk to her, right? And we're sitting there anyway. So and that's like that's not my higher self. That's not an intelligent self, but it's so deeply rooted in our conditioning to not want to get caught being attracted to or liking somebody. And people don't even know that neurology is running their love life. And that's why they're creating the results they're creating. It's their conditioning more than anything. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question, but I did go down a tangent.
No, there's a lot of meat there, of different things that you shared that I think people need to pay attention to when it comes to creating the ideal relationship that they want to create. So my question to you was, what makes you actually good at creating results? And one of the things that I heard out of that is you're able to, number one, meet people where they're at and give them love and understanding, help them feel seen and heard in their experience. They trust you, feel safe as a result of that. And in feeling that safety, they spill the guts and you can tune into where they are and then guide them from that place. Number one. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then
that was very well said. Yes.
And two is you take a multidimensional perspective or approach, I should say, to how to actually guide someone through the process, because you had mentioned what I really got from it is many people come from the head, right? The transactional, strategic approach to life, because that's how a lot of people do most things, is just, through the mental capacity versus tuning into their heart and being authentic and genuine from that place of heart, in combination with that. And another level is the spiritual, energetic level outside of the physical 3D realm. So what makes you good at getting results is that you're able to tap into all those different dimensions of reality and through that guide people from more of a holistic approach versus using one dimension over the other.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you just said something that sparked finally a way to articulate, which is what I think we've talked about this in the past, but like armchair manifesting. And I think we'll talk about manifesting a little bit, right? Which is like if I journal, if I imagine, if I meditate, and that's a huge, important, magical component that I'm like, yes, keep doing that. And what I see so often is like forgetting that there's like there's a human experience happening. And like, we're not just here to have exclusively, I don't think, right? Like, feel free to disagree with me, but I don't think we're just here to have a spiritual experience, because if we were, I think we would have just stayed non-physical, you know, like we would have just stayed one piece and like not incarnated into these human, you know, vehicles. And so I think like a really big part of our journey here is to understand and work with and embrace and like play with what the human part of us brings to the table. And what the human part of us brings to the table, again, is like one of the things is our neurology. And it's all fine and dandy to have like a beautiful vision, but if you're not also bringing your human self up to that level or guiding it into that ascension, it's kind of like having like not pulling up anchor when you're trying to get somewhere. Like you might be able to, but you're gonna have to turn the engines up higher. You're gonna, you know, gouge this huge trench in the ocean floor, and it's like you could just like lift the anchor with you, but you have to admit that there's an anchor there, right? So yeah, is like, are you working with yourself, or are you sort of like almost like spiritual bypassing yourself? Like it's all energy, you know? It's like, well, it's energy and it's action, like, and it's matter. There's matter here. We're here in like a matter-based dimension. And that's one of the cool things. We get to like touch and laugh and smell and.
But there's a lot of confusion, which is why we're even having this conversation of what that actually means when it comes to manifestation, because a lot of people like myself at some point thought that, or think that, okay, if I visualize and then get in tune with my emotions, this is the formula for manifestation. And it is. And I think where people are missing some of the point is, well, what level of action and from what level of being that action gets to be taken in order to actually produce a result. And I was having a conversation with one of my buddies last night around this, and we were talking about dating and relationships and people taking action versus those that say, I'm just going to wait. The divine is going to place my partner in front of me at the right time, right? It's all going to come in divine timing. And also, if I just visualize it enough and feel the feelings, that's what's going to create what I want. And that's true to a certain extent. And I believe that if you're in complete alignment on the various multidimensional levels, then you actually don't have to take as much action if you have that alignment. And if you're not in that alignment, it takes that much more action, which is kind of what you're using the ship and the anchor as the metaphor to what I'm speaking into here, right?
I think when you're in alignment, there's no resistance to taking action. Right? So so an example of this is like, it's not just any action, right? But like, for example, if one of your top priorities is to have an epic love story with an incredible woman, and then you're journaling and watching Netflix, and those are like your primary uses of your free time, that is totally out of alignment. Like journaling like that, like if we just like come to a logical standpoint, or even just like if we're communicating through our action and our pattern of behavior to source, to universe, you're like, I want this, and then you're doing this, there's no coherence there, right? Versus if like, man, like it's a top priority for me to meet an incredible person, then okay, cool. Like, am I placing myself in environments with stimulating, exciting people? Am I embracing it and owning this desire such that I'm sharing it with the people around me who love and support me, who would want that for me as well? So like they're helping me expand my broadcast. They know what I'm looking for so that they might be able to introduce me to highly qualified, like that is aligned action. And if you're really aligned, then there's no resistance. Like there would be no hang up to like shouting it from a mountaintops to like getting all of your favorite people and like shooting them a text message and be like, you know what I want? Like, I want to be in love with a woman like this. And they'd be like, oh yes, that is alignment. There's no resistance to action if you're in alignment.
And no fear to put yourself out there, because you feel and know that this is something that's coming to you, and through the alignment that you're creating within yourself, which is awesome. And this is a perfect plug for Soul Connected, because as you spoke, right, like once you become into alignment, then you take that action. One of those actions is putting yourself out there, right? Like you can't, as a business, sell a product that doesn't get on shelves because it's not visible and no one can buy it. Same thing for an individual. If you don't put yourself out there, put yourself on the shelf, no one can buy into who you are as a human being. And so Soul Connected provides that forum, if you will, for people to actually put themselves out there with other like-minded people, to share with them, here's what I want. Do you know of anyone like that? And through the hive mentality and tribe structure, then everyone works together to put that vibration out there of what that individual wants and desires in the world. And through that, the manifestation of an individual's partner can come. Just one of the avenues. So thank you for sharing that. I think that was amazing. So I'll speak more about Soul Connected at the end of this, because Theora is going to be joining us there. So for all those that want to have, one-on-one interaction with this wisdom source right here in the dating relationship space, then your opportunity is coming in a couple of weeks here. So thank you for sharing everything that you just shared in terms of how you help people get results, because that's important for people that are going to put, some money down to work with you specifically, or work with us as Soul Connected to access people like yourself. And so thank you for sharing that information. Now, one of the things that I think is important for people to understand is that we all have our ideas of the challenges and struggles that are causing us not to be able to find that perfect relationship that we're looking for. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would love to know from you, what are some of the issues that people are having, or why do you think people are struggling when it comes to this? Because it's very clear that people are struggling when it comes to creating that ideal relationship. Why do you think this is happening?
Okay, there's what here. I'm going to tell you what people think is the problem, and then I'll tell you what is actually the problem. Perfect. So some of the things that people think is the problem is that there's a scarcity of awesome people out there. Newsflash, there's not. There's a lot of really freaking incredible people out there. Another thing that people think of is like, oh, maybe there's incredible people, but they're not in my town or my city. Which again, there's probably like, I've had people in Chicago. There's like 6, maybe not. Okay, whatever. There's millions of people in Chicago.
A lot of damn people.
I don't think so, right? I've had people in Dubai say this. I've had people in Tuscany say this. I've had people in LA say, and it's just kind of like, I don't think that's how this works. Just statistically improbable. Another thing is people have stories. Another reason why is that, well, my life has to look a certain way before I can prioritize that. And there's a little more gray area here, because like sometimes there are people who are like really in touch, and I'm like all for taking intentional solo time. I think that's super sacred. I think if you've never been single, I would highly encourage being single, and like what it's like to be like devotionally, lovingly with self. I think that's a huge important thing that as adults we can and should do if we have the opportunity. But you have to be in constant self-inquiry to know when that has switched from like self-love, self-devotion into hiding from like the courageous, brave work of showing up for the caliber of love story you want. Another is like love will find you when you're not looking for it, which is a little bit of a misdiagnosis. It's like money will find you when you're not looking for it. I don't think that's how that works. Like maybe
Oh,
sometimes, but
yeah.
probably not like the epic wealth that somebody desires. Like maybe like a
Mhm.
$5 bill here or like a surprise check there, but like not like the whole kit and caboodle. So there's just so a lot of basically, or it's like something about my energy, or maybe I'm not as conscious as I said I was, or it's because I had a mean dad, or la la la. Right? These are all sort of smoke screens for why we don't have the love we want. I think the biggest contributors to this being a challenge is one, uh, we really, unlike other areas of personal development like spirituality, wealth, success, health, we have not examined what like relational and romantic mastery actually is and what it actually looked like. This is still an arena of life that we just want to like stumble into one day and everything will be great and the communication will just be magical. We'll never have any misunderstandings, right? And so there's
No,
a
I've never done that. What are you talking about?
yeah, which isn't to say that the like, and people think that by giving up this unconscious strategy, that they're giving up an unfolding and like a magical incarnation or it happening in a magical way, which is not true. You're just giving up the inability to influence it, right? So the current status quo is
Mm,
like you have to stumble into it. If you do it, if you give it any attention, you're already doing it wrong. Um,
mm,
so there's this blinder, there's this like head in the sand thing that's happening because everybody is so enrolled in this collective story of like good love, real love, um, has to happen on accident. That's one
mm,
thing. And then the
mm,
other, again, relational romantic mastery is we learned relationship through osmosis. We learned it from our family of origin, and most
mm.
people's family of origin was highly dysfunctional. We learned it through messaging. So the movies we've watched, and if you watch any drama, any rom-com, and you look at those relationships and you really get down to it, there's like deception, there's betrayal, there's violation of boundaries. Like it's wild how unhealthy, like if you actually look at it with like a keen eye,
Interesting.
you are not going to want any of those relationships you can see in movies, but like they're so cathartic and they make us feel so much, right? And
Hmm.
we've internalized a lot of that.
Mm. My
And
parents used to watch Young and the Restless. Have you seen that?
mm-mm,
Oh my gosh, it's like this drama way back in the 80s and 90s that my parents used to record every day, episodic series that came on daily, which perfectly epitomizes what you're sharing in terms of those dynamics happening and the messaging being programmed into my consciousness. So that just came up for me, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
and then the third, which is the layer that got stacked on it, as we start to venture out into the world and have our own romantic experiences, sometimes as early as like elementary school or middle school, romantic and sexual, we start to accumulate relational trauma because we're trying to create relationship from those first two uh, like buckets of family of origin and messaging. And then we're taking that like very bizarre, convoluted, ineffective information, trying to create relationships. Then we get our hearts broken. We are abused or assaulted. Um, everything. I mean, you just go back through your relationships and like you have trauma from all of them. And so then you throw that in the pot, and like that's the information internally, unconsciously, sometimes like unexamined, um, wholly unexamined. And then that's where we're trying to create partnership from. And that's crazy,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So it's these two things. One is this like this stigma around giving it time and attention and spiritual focus. Uh, and and then also just like the mechanism behind it, which is our conditioning. That's
Mm-hmm.
making most if not all of our decisions in love and relationship, which is why like people will repeat patterns. Like they'll keep picking someone who's unavailable. They're like 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 I've never dated people who cheated on me as far as I know, right? But then I know some people who like always pick somebody who cheats on them. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, like how do people keep repeating that? It's like, because it's not their higher self who's doing who's like running this show. It's their conditioning.
Mm-hmm. So why do people struggle is the question that I posed to you. Number one, I got is that they have this belief that it's difficult for them to find that one. But based on the data, there's 7.46 billion people out in the world. Half of them are single. Just based on the data alone, just dispels that belief, right? Or that misconception about life. Two is putting their attention into dating and relationships. People feel like if they do that, that's going to actually block them from what they are creating. And then three, their conditioning that they don't have the awareness of is causing them to act and behave in such ways that are actually unhealthy or out of alignment, which then produces the same result of struggle, because that's what we were programmed with, is watching people struggling in relationship. And so of course we're going to recreate that until we have the awareness that, oh, this is what the programming is, and then start to change that, where an individual like you then comes in, right, to then help them to bring awareness to those dynamics and the programming and conditioning that usually people are blind to because they've been doing it for so long that it becomes so automatic that they don't even realize they're even doing it yet, right? So were those the top three things in terms of struggle?
Yeah. And just a little sound bite is that I want to say to people, because all results are the effect of a process or a system. So
or lack thereof.
Or lack there, which is still a system or a process. It's just not an intelligent one, right? And so it's understanding the results we're experiencing right now are directly correlated to a system, or in what the word you kept using was programming, right? So it's understanding right now your neurology, your conditioning is actually uniquely designed, if unintelligently so, to create the results we're experiencing. So if you redesign the programming, you can create new results.
So let's dive into that. Okay, so you gave us the top three things that you think are causing people struggle in the world. I'm sure many individuals like myself can resonate with that and see the truth in that. So share with us then, what are your best tips for being able to mitigate against those dynamics playing out in the world?
Yeah, I can give one that might like really land this home. So it's talking about the fact that like our brains are masters at pattern recognition. And I misquoted this last time. I said it was okay. There's a part in our brain called the reticular activating system, and it's the part of our brain that differentiates what information is important and what information is not. Right. So for example, you're not thinking about the texture of your clothes. That your reticular activating system has said, like, that's actually not important right now. What's important is like the human in front of us. So it's this intermediary that decides, okay, like pay attention, like prioritize this data, and then like the rest of this data is subconscious. Your reticular activating system determines what is important and what's not important, I believe, by like age 7 or age 12. I oftentimes don't quote things perfectly, but the point is you need to understand the functioning. So if you had, like you said, you watched these shows growing up, you had this information downloaded into your brain that was like, okay, this is what this looks like. This is what to look for. This is right, and you'll be socially rewarded for this. This is wrong, and you will be abandoned if you do this. And that, so like oftentimes what I see, let's talk about this myth that there's no good matches out there. There's nobody on my level. There's no remarkable men, remarkable women, no remarkable prospects. Every time I do this with all of my clients is, once that like prime directive was established, your brain has been collecting data to prove it right for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, however long you've been alive. So if you've had, let's say, negative experiences with, let's say, unfaithful women, right? Your brain is actually looking for that pattern, which is why people repeat picking people that cheat. It's not like, oh, weird look. It's like literally their nervous system is like, this is somebody who like has this pattern, it can recognize it, and then we'll opt into that because that's actually what it's looking for and paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Even though like we don't want that, our brain is highly trained to identify that.
Mm-hmm.
It's been prioritized information. So what do you do if you're experiencing, so for me, the way this looked was several years ago, I heard myself, I was at my first Tony Robbins event, a second, and I heard, there are just no good men out there. And I was like, because I know how that, I was like, oh, if I'm thinking that, then I'm amassing information to prove myself right. That's what our brains do. I was like, okay. I don't want that experience. So what do I want? And I was like, I think I changed it to, I'm surrounded, the positive opposite, right? I'm surrounded by remarkable men. And so I would say that, and I would start to collect evidence of remarkable. I basically gave my reticular activating system instruction. I said, find evidence of remarkable men, right? So I would see a picture of Barack Obama opening the door and like holding an umbrella for Michelle. And I was like, oh, remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right? And then I would see, like this couple. And then all of a sudden they just like, and they weren't necessarily romantic options, but like I think about 10 months later, I had this sort of like, I don't know if you have those like push-pull moments when all of a sudden like a moment becomes really vivid. And I looked around and I was surrounded by 18 men, all of whom were quite remarkable. And I kind of did this like little cataloging in my life. And I was like, man, I have a professional network of remarkable men now. And I've dated remarkable men now. I mean, like in college, I dated a guy who was so embarrassed of me, he didn't let me come in the grocery store with him. Right? Like I started out at the bottom of the barrel, if you know what I mean. So I had like dated really amazing men who weren't my man, but were really, really quality men who taught me a lot about different aspects of love. Professionally, I was surrounded by remarkable men. I had these men who were friends who were coming in who were really remarkable. And I realized like by giving your brain a new evidence to collect, you will actually start to reprogram your reality and you'll start to experience a different reality. Mm-hmm. So now like, I just don't have crappy dudes in my life. And when I say crappy, I don't want to be super judgmental, but like people who contribute stimulus that makes me feel not good. Like I'm almost exclusively surrounded by remarkable men. And so I gave it that. And then I realized like, well, I don't just want to be surrounded by remarkable men. I want to be wooed and pursued by remarkable men. Right. So then I upgraded it to I'm wooed and pursued by remarkable men. And then, within like 3 months, men were like stopping me in different places and like at events and coming up to me and being like, hey, like my name's such and such. I would really like to meet you. Right. So that's like the third iteration. But the thing is, I don't think I could have jumped from there are no good men to I'm wooed and pursued by remarkable men because I didn't even believe they existed yet. Mm-hmm. Right. But once you're surrounded by them, then it's not like your brain's not like, that's impossible. It's like, oh yeah, they're everywhere. Mm-hmm. Of course I could become wooed and pursued by incredible men. So that's an example of acknowledging your programming, which you can observe basically through the thoughts you're having, which oftentimes look as like doubts, worries, and fears. And then is to start to be like, well, what is the reality I want to experience? And if it feels like an impossible reality, then it's like, well, what's the in between? Mm-hmm. So, and then become dogged about really collecting the evidence and be really indiscriminate about collecting the evidence. So sometimes when people will do this, like they'll meet a remarkable man, but he's married to their friend, so he doesn't count. It's like, no. Like it's not just remarkable men who could be a perfect husband match. Like you have a folder over here with 35, 40 years of evidence for how men are bad or women are untrustworthy or blah, blah, whatever. And then you have this empty folder over here of women being remarkable or men being remarkable. So start to put in like the Instagram meme of Obama being amazing and start to put in that moment of that 70-year-old man treating me to a coffee unexpectedly. Right. And like you start to be really generous because you've been very generous over here. Right. Like a guy looks at you funny and you're like, another example of a pig, putting it in the folder. Right. Like anything goes in there if it even like hints that it could be a guy being bad. Right. And so it's like be indiscriminate here so you can like start to create something that counterbalances there's a lot of inertia in this belief system. It's like that really starts to create some momentum of what it's like to live in a world where there are really remarkable men, remarkable women, remarkable prospects out there. That's an example of one way to reprogram ourselves. And it's so much more gentle than like living in this reality there being no men and then like trying to journal your way and like believe your way into reality. It's like work with your neurology. If you work with your neurology, you're going to make the process from here to there so much more fun, so much more gentle, so much more playful than if you try to just do the fourth dimension.
Wow. That was a lot of incredible information. And I want to unpack it real quick because it'll help me understand. And I think in doing so, hopefully those that are watching this will have a deeper understanding of what it is that you're sharing, right? So what I heard there was that we as human beings have this natural function. This natural function enables us to see things based on our belief, right? And whatever we believe, we're going to focus on more so of, and we focus on it, the universe will bring us experiences to confirm that thing we're believing in, whether it's good or bad, right? And so it's important to understand what our conditioning and programming is, our thoughts and our emotions that then drive the experiences that we're having, because then once we can pick that apart and understand it, we can then put into our focus the thing we actually want versus the thing that we don't want. And then when we put that actual desire into focus, we'll start to see it more in the world. And as we see more of that which we want in the world, it brings more confidence to us that this is the way reality is. And when you start believing this is the way reality is, it'll draw more of those experiences because the universe is going to reflect your deepest thoughts and emotions and beliefs. Is that a good way to encompass it?
Yeah. And one just slight adjustment I would make is it's not that the universe is bringing you cheaters. It's that there are good quality men and then there are cheaters. Your brain happens to be highly trained to see this one. So this is the experience you're having. So this is the man you move towards, not this one. So it's not that they're not there. It's that you literally aren't seeing them or can't see them because of the way that your brain is trained.
So it's really a matter of what you're paying attention to, because your brain is trained to pay attention to the thing that is deeply rooted as programming, as a belief in your consciousness, right?
Yeah.
So you're trained to see that in the world because that's how nature has designed it. And so what you can help people do is to see that thing that they're trained to believe, how it's manifested into their life, make that correlation so that they can say, oh shit, that's why I've been having these experiences. And then you give them the formula, right? Here's how you can work with your natural functioning as a human being to then focus your attention towards what you actually desire. And when you do that, you'll start to see more of it. It'll provide more confirmation, more confidence, and then you'll start to build the life experiences that you actually desire.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also, I think one of the really cool things when you learn about this is so often we blame ourselves for why we're single. And we think that it means that there's something wrong with us. And I think once you start to realize like, oh, maybe I was given an incomplete or a cruddy set of instructions as like a youth. And like now it's not about like, oh, I'm an unworthy person. It's nothing about like a judgment character. It's a little bit like, oh, I had a certain software program running on this operating system and it wasn't a very good one. But what's really cool is that doesn't mean the operating system is bad or faulty. It's like, what if we just introduced a new software program? And then it becomes less about it. We can create so much more forgiveness and so much more space for ourselves to be imperfect and clumsy, and for this to be more of an experiment than a a judgment call about our worthiness or whether we deserve it or can have it, because it's not about us. It's really about like the human condition.
And that's a big reason why people block themselves from that ideal relationship is not only are you focusing your attention on the thing that you actually don't want, but because you're creating that result that doesn't feel good to you, you then begin to judge yourself for actually creating that experience. And that adds then another layer that makes it even that much more difficult. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, especially in the consciousness space, right? Because we all know that we create our reality. And so then we end up coming to this conclusion, well, like, I'm creating my reality, so I'm and oftentimes in the conscious community, like when they're single and they don't want to be, and then they can't figure out why it is that they're still single, and then they internalize it as like, oh, well, then I must secretly be out of alignment, or I must secretly not be as conscious, or I might secretly have this trauma, right? Versus it's like, actually, you were just given a really crappy deck of cards. Like you were given a really bad hand, and you just need to upgrade your hand, but you have to give yourself permission to not be like, no, I want to win with this hand. This is the hand I was given. Right. Which is that like argument for like, I want it to happen naturally. I don't want to give it any time and attention. I don't want to give it intention, but yet I want this like epic, like earth tingling relationship, this epic love that's expansive for me and expansive for them, where we both have businesses that complement each other, or maybe we have a business together and we travel the world and we split time and we inspire everyone who comes across our, like, that's the relationship we want. And yet there's a massive disconnect between the caliber and the expansiveness and the dynamism of this relationship, and then the strategy people are trying to create, right? This is like showing up for a minimum wage job and not understanding why you don't have 5 million in the bank. It's just like, this is not designed to create this. It's just not. And I think what I see moving forward is in the personal development space is people to start understanding that I think love and relationship is kind of this final frontier where people are applying all of this higher intelligence to health, wealth, success, enlightenment, fulfillment, travel. But then for whatever reason, they're kind of leaving love over here in this very, very unconscious, unexamined space. Versus like, well, what does it actually look like to bring the same kind of investment and curiosity and consistency? Because like watching Netflix at home by yourself, it is not an alignment. If anything, you're communicating with your body, with your entity, that like what's important to you is Netflix. Right? I mean, like, guilty as charged on.
I know what I'm saying. Like, I was just watching Netflix last night, so.
Well, and that's okay as long as you're okay. Like tonight, Netflix is important. Like decompressing tonight is important to me. But when like that's your go-to thing at night versus like doing the uncomfortable thing and like going out or what have you, like it's time to get real with yourself. You know, that's like saying you want your body to look and feel a certain way, and then like eating donuts every night. I mean, like, well, I don't have a 6-pack. It's like, well, when did you go to the gym?
Yeah.
You have to do the thing that works if you actually want to create the thing. So,
I mean, and that applies to every aspect of life when it comes to losing weight, when it comes to creating a successful business, when it comes to just about everything. And you spoke into this for a second, that people are trained to do that in those aspects of life, right? But why, when it comes to love and connection, people are not prioritizing the actions that it's going to take in order for them to actually create the ideal relationship that they want. And my thoughts start to go into, why is that? Why are people not prioritizing it enough? And this is also another great time to plug Soul Connected, because one of the things that intuitively came to me is that it's just not about going to this one event and experience, because change happens over time, right? And change happens over placing your attention and focus into a realm of your life that you want to change. And so immersing yourself into love and connection is, to me, and from what you're saying, is the answer to actually creating the love and connection that you so desire. And if you are in alignment with that by sitting at home watching Netflix, eating your coconut ice cream,
Yeah.
then what can you expect? It's like someone wanting to be LeBron James on the basketball court, but they're out there playing golf, or even more so, they're not playing anything at all, not practicing, but saying in their mind, like, I'm going to be LeBron James, I'm going to be one of the greatest in the world in this space. But then again, there's not that alignment.
Yeah. And I would love to offer an upgrade to your listeners, which is I would love to say, like, yeah, aligned action, which oftentimes looks like intelligent action. So often I see people don't want to be on dating apps. Like it's not particularly fun. And part of this comes from like, people don't love the whole like text message pen pal tendency. They think someone looks attractive. They think the rapport via text message is fun. And then they show up and they know within 30 seconds, like, oh, there's no spark here. So then, like, after you do that 5-6 times, they start to become discouraged, right? So what I wanted to zoom out for a second is it's not just any action equals alignment. Some action is better than no action, but I would really love to offer a higher call here, which is, are you taking intelligent action? So if you don't like dating online, if it makes you feel discouraged, if it's exhausting, if it's frustrating, if you hear yourself being like, ugh, men never do this, or women always do this, that's not aligned action, right? That's actually placing you in an energetic deficit to reinforce the negative programming that this is hard, that it's challenging, that for some reason you experience these unique problems. If you don't like online dating, don't date online, right? Get more creative, seek out experiences that expand you, that electrify you, that excite you, that might also contribute to the possibility of being introduced to or getting to meet people, aka soul connected, right? Soul connected is a higher intelligence way to do it. And I would really encourage anybody watching this, and like, I don't get commissions or whatever the heck, but
you won't now.
I do. Well, I will now. My plan's working. No, but no, for real, is like, experiment, like do things that give you the opportunity to experience intimacy and experience connection and experience qualified leads, speaking to all the entrepreneurs out here, right? These are, like, if you go here, these are also other single people who are willing to do something brave, who are willing to be vulnerable, who are willing to put themselves in a higher intelligence room in service to love, right?
Wow.
So like, pick juicy stuff. Let the byproduct of your dating strategy be awesome experiences, right? There's no loss there. There's no net loss there. If you're doing these really cool activities that are also social, that are also higher caliber. One of the examples I always give is, like, if you like scuba diving, like, join the local scuba club. For you're in San Diego. Or even take it to the next level, like, invest in that scuba trip in Hawaii, right? Like, all of a sudden now you have people who are like, invest in adventure, who like love the ocean, who love this activity that you do. Like, this is what it looks like to be an intelligent alignment, and place yourself in the path of your meet cute, your magical unfolding. And you're going to start doing this stuff, and then you'll meet the person. You'll be like, oh my God, they came out of nowhere. I just planned this trip to this art festival in Texas. I don't know. And it's like, well, yeah, you planned the trip to the art festival in Texas. Of course,
right. Yeah.
So I really do believe it's aligned action looks like stuff that electrifies you, excites you, lights you up. I would also say consistency. So like, if you really do want love and that's a priority, give yourself permission to do something once a week, once every other week, once a month, that excites you, electrifies you, amplifies you, and that's social. And really pay attention. Are there activities that you're doing that are reinforcing the negative beliefs? Because if so, that's like an immediate feedback loop that what you're doing is not in alignment with your epic love story. You got to show up epic if you want an epic love story. Epic love story doesn't happen to lazy strategy. That's just like lazy strategy doesn't equal epic results. Lazy strategy equals lazy results. or
Which is
mediocre.
why a lot of people struggle, in this space. And what I'm hearing from you, what resonates for me is that what I know to be true about manifestation is it's difficult, if not impossible, to manifest from a disempowered place where you're not in a high vibrational state that is in alignment with the actual desire that you want, right? And what I'm hearing you say is that by doing the dating apps and the things that actually create more of that disempowerment, right? You go on a dating app, you have this experience of getting ghosted, then you're having all these stories that you tell yourself, you start judging yourself, you're now in a disempowered state. How can you manifest what you want from that state? And if you continue to do that, you will continue to produce those results. When you are taking actions that are out of alignment with creating the higher vibrational state, feeling love and connection on a regular basis, because my sense is that why people struggle a lot is because they continue to do those things like dating apps that disempower them over and over and over and over again. They're not feeling the vibration of love and connection on a regular enough basis where it actually becomes their way of being. And when your way of being becomes love and connection, naturally you're going to attract more experiences like that. That goes back to what you were sharing earlier in terms of the thing that you place your attention and focus on is ultimately going to create that vibration within you. It's going to help you shift into that vibration, if you will. And when you do that, that's how you actually produce the end results. So then having the awareness that that's one thing that an individual needs to do on a regular basis is to go out on dates and create those experiences that enliven them and empower them and make them feel love and connection on a regular basis is part of the formula, right, to manifesting that desire. Is that what you're saying?
Can you say that last bit?
Taking those actions that create a more empowered individual or empowered individual on a regular basis, then shift your being into the state that will manifest that which you desire.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, it's twofold. I mean, it's like an intelligent strategy combined with the energetic coherence, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the stacked tractor beam.
Mm-hmm. I like your little karate track.
Yeah, that's the stacked tractor beam.
And so basically for me, I'm hearing like, put yourself in as many situations as you can that create that feeling of love and connection in your heart and into your being. Because when you do that, that's what's going to shift your vibration. That's what makes you magnetic as a human being, is because you're feeling empowered in the places that you go to. And that's what actually magnetizes the partnership that you actually want. And stop doing the things that are continuing to disempower you. One of those things being lazy, sitting on a couch, watching Netflix, eating coconut ice cream and judging yourself for doing that. And you're disempowering yourself. And how can you be magnetic coming from that place or approaching life that way?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, yes, it's like, find experiences that help you feel like connected, find experiences that deepen you, find experiences that electrify you, find experiences that bolster your confidence, find experiences that make you like laugh till you cry or what have you, right? And even better, find some that do all of that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not, first of all, even if you don't meet somebody at like the first 3 events or what have you, you're having an experience that deepens you, makes you feel connected, makes you laugh till you cry, expands your mind. But also like that repeat. So the byproduct is great. Like, it's just a better, it's like a higher quality of life. But yeah, then you, like you said, like you're engineering a state and like attracts like.
Wow. I couldn't have asked for a better conversation to really highlight why Soul Connected provides so much value to people and why it's such a benefit for all those reasons that you just shared that I've never actually put into a very clear message. And so now I'm like, oh, this is perfect for copy and promoting what it is that we're doing, because it's truth to me. Like doing those things over and over again that enliven you, that bring you into your heart, that deepen your state into that state of love and connection is ultimately part of the recipe that's going to create the experience that people desire. And it must be done on a consistent and frequent basis. And an individual needs to be aware, like, just going to one event or two events isn't going to ultimately produce that result. And we spoke about this over the phone, which is that one of the things that you found with the clients that you work with, which you have 100% success rate in helping people get the result that they're looking for with the clients that you've worked with, right? And one of the things you shared with me is that this doesn't happen overnight, right? And usually it takes time for an individual to really create that state, and then ultimately they manifest from that. And I really think that's important for people to understand, because we live in a day and age where we do have access to things quickly, when we can pop on our phones, pull up our Uber Eats app, and we could have, chicken masala delivered to our door in minutes.
Yeah.
And people expect that also with other things, and relationships is one place where I think people have that expectation that if I start to just do even a little work in it, that ultimately it should produce the result that I'm looking for, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to do one clarification. 100% success rate with people who've done the work for a year. So it's like,
got it.
There are definitely people who have created really amazing relationships in a shorter period of time, but everyone who's done the year-long program is now currently partnered with people who they call their forever queen, or who they're discussing marriage with, who, I worked with enough people who they're about to be engaged. Like that sort of thing. And like, just like really vibrant, like relationships that look really good off screen. It's not just good branding. But there was something else you said, but I wanted to just be really transparent about that. Doing it over time. Oh, I don't know if this is going to speak, but remember, like, we're reprogramming your neurology. Like that doesn't happen in a week, right? Like that begins to happen over 90 days, and it's the whole process of like, we have to like deconstruct the old paradigm. We have to upgrade you into a new paradigm. Then you have to go play in that paradigm and really start to like, to bake it in and believe in it and like let it in, really trust it's your new reality. And then that's when you start finding and attracting really high quality leads, prospects. I use a lot of like, because I work with so many entrepreneurs and CEOs, it's like using
it's part of the programming.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like I should niche down instead of trying to be likable to everybody. It's like, yes, go for your ideal client, not any client. And then from there, like you want to select, like oftentimes it's not the first high quality lead you get, right? It's like, you go on a few dates with them and there's some really amazing qualities. And you're like, actually, like, I think that I may also really need this in my like love happiness formula. Cool. Let's upgrade again, So there is a runway when it comes to rejecting an old crappy status quo strategy and design, and like really creating something that's like uniquely calibrated to create your epic love story. So yeah, like you do need that runway. And like you said, that with like the immediate gratification, I mean, any entrepreneur knows, right? And like, there are some people who like have that overnight success story, but then you find out like, oh wait, they had this asset. They already had a list from their previous company. And like, that's what allowed them to do, high 6-figure sales in their first 6 months, or right. Like, and so you start to realize that like the overnight successes are not overnight successes. To create a really remarkable company usually takes a little while. And like relationships are just as dynamic and complex and nuanced as a company. Like you're trying to create a masterpiece with another person with all their programming and all their stuff. So it's a really dynamic thing that you're trying to create, that you're asking a lot of, like spiritual fulfillment, erotic fulfillment, romantic fulfillment, social fulfillment, financial and economic fulfillment. It's awesome, but is to like stop like, one of the things I like to say is like, you want a relationship that's fairy tale good but real as fuck. Is like, if like a real fairy tale, like people have had that. Like I've had the relationship that looks great on paper. Like relationships like that look great on paper are not that great. So in like the world of immediate gratification, yeah, you can't show up to the job site and expect the house to be built. Like you have to come back and you have to like start with the foundation and like, and put the studs in and then build out the infrastructure and then drywall and then paint and then decorate and then move the people in and then decide you don't like something. So like renovate this room. Like fuck hacking. Like one of my teachers, John Wineland, on his website, it says, fuck hacking, go deep. And I love that. I love that where in like the world of hacking,
okay, I can go deep.
Yeah, I think that we can get really distracted by the quick fix, and I think that sometimes that can give us that little. But when we want that in every area, or if our go-to is the hack, then we really lose a lot of the solidity that comes from really just sophistication and intelligence and consistency.
Yeah. Wow, that's those are some incredible nuggets there. I really, really appreciate you for sharing all of that. And in terms of cultivating that intelligence, this is what Soul Connected is for, right?
Yeah.
We bring intelligent individuals like yourself that have studied formulas and have created results from those formulas. And we come into a space to just have these discussions and to break down, the stigmas and the challenges that come with dating and relationships, and immerse you into experiences that do enliven you, that deepen your practice when it comes to dating and relationships, and make you actually feel good. So you're vibrating at that level that you're going to magnetize the experience that you want when it comes to creating an ideal relationship. And so I want to thank you for taking this time and for dropping all of those nuggets. Is there anything that you want to share before we wrap up?
I think, the one thing I want to share is like epic partnership is not for the lucky few. Epic partnership is for those who are ready to, like, I almost said humility, but it's like epic love is available to the rebels and the innovators and the people who are like, you know what, I hate the status quo, because it's usually not a very good reason. And who love this idea of really rebelling against an old system that is designed for good enough, that is designed for settling, that very much so was actually designed for resource acquisition and division of labor, not designed to create, celebrate, and expand love. And so it's like, I want to speak to that sacred rebel in your audience that really likes the idea of pushing against a status quo and being like, fuck it, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna do my own thing. Like, take that, society or the proverbial they. And like, it is an act of rebellion. It is an act of innovation to slow down and get curious of, like, I want a love story that's remarkable. And my love story is only possible through me. If they don't pick up the gauntlet or the torch for that love story, it's not going to get to be. So what does it look like to hear that call and embrace that call and understand, like, on the other side of this kind of maybe stigmatized, brave, courageous exploration and action is really bottomless fulfillment and kind of connection beyond your wildest dreams and spiritual growth for a lifetime. And that kind of like pinch me in my dreaming future. So I want to just like appeal to the inner rebel to, say like, fuck the stigma. Like, I am so much bigger than a stigma, and the status quo is badly designed. And so I'm going to do the vulnerable thing, and I'm going to get curious and really place myself in those edgy inquiries and also those edgy experiences to bet on and invest in the love story I want. because it's there for us. It's not that we can create whatever we want in wealth, health, success, and spiritual enlightenment, and but not love. Oh, this universe was just designed for love to be the one area where we can't be master creators. And I'm like, I don't
It's not jiving with me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I haven't actually been to Soul Connected yet, but I've spoken with you a bunch of times, and I your mission is super spot on. It's an intelligent, sophisticated mission. I know your commitment to improvement and evolution. And so whatever this one brings, I really trust that each successive experience is going to be even more magnificent. I know you have a really amazing team behind you. And I've had actually a couple ideas that I can share with you after this call of things that could really amplify and create that electrifying, exciting, varietal experience that I'm guessing your listeners who seek extraordinary, this will make just a quality, meaningful experience that whether they meet somebody there or not, they're going to walk away and really be grateful. That was an evening well spent.
Wow. Well, I'm excited to hear those ideas and the insights that you have to share. I know they're going to be powerful. I can just feel that, and knowing your experience and the wisdom that you hold is going to bring the information that we need to create that extraordinary experience that you speak of. And we're really invested into that. And we spend a lot of time thinking about, okay, what are the right processes and experiences and exercises that we can take an individual through to create that epic experience. And what you just shared about being a rebel in this area of our life really speaks to me, because that's what's always created success in my life, is being that rebel and going against the status quo. And in the beginning of my life, that was, definitely, what I'm looking for? Not encouraged, if you will. But nowadays I know that is more of a reason why to do that thing when people are saying don't do it. On the other side of that is a lot of answers, a lot of growth, and a lot of progress as well. So thank you for sharing that, because to me, on the selfish level, that's what Soul Connected is. I'm doing something that I never thought I would be doing when it comes to relationships, but I have such a deep desire right now to create the ideal relationship, because I'm highly motivated to be the epic model for my daughter, because I know in order to protect her, to create that experience of being with an epic man that will care for her and love her, she needs to see that programming like we talked about earlier, or not see the programming, but instill that programming within her through what she's witnessing on a regular basis. And so this is my effort in doing that, to create more loving connection in the world for everyone. But on a very selfish level, this is how I want to create a legacy that not only my daughter can benefit from, but from others as well. It's how can we change the fabric of how relationships are approached? Because right now, obviously, it's not working, and the status quo and what we've designed thus far is not working. So I really appreciate you, Dior, for the work that you're doing in the world and the work that you have done to really come to these conclusions and to this awareness, and for sharing it with everyone that's on this or watching this video right now, and for those that you're going to bring it to in this experience that we're going to have. And part of what we've designed is for Dior to do power sessions with those that purchase the higher ticket and come to the private experience in the workshop that we're doing. You're getting an opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with Dior, because I know there's many of you that are like, well, what about this particular challenge that I'm going through? So we want you to have a conversation with Dior, a really short time frame. You're going to break those things down. You're going to give them tips and tricks that can at least create the foundation that you spoke of, or at least give them the possibility what that foundation looks like and what that journey looks like. And then ultimately we take that journey together. So I'm really excited for that. I know people are going to get a lot of value from that. So if this interests you, if you'd like to join us for the event, go to getsoulconnected.com, our website. It'll flash across the screen. purchase your ticket, come see Theora, come see the other experts that we have brought to the table that have such amazing wisdom and intelligence around dating and relationships. And again, I just want to thank you one last time, Theora, for your presence, for your support, for your wisdom.
My pleasure. I'm very excited.
Let's do this. So I'm going to stop the recording.